Neither the billionaire nor doctors could save his wife, until a black biker girl did the unthinkable. This is a story that proves one undeniable truth. Sometimes the answer to our deepest prayers arrives on two wheels, wearing leather and carrying a heart bigger than any fortune could ever buy. Chapter 1. The autumn wind swept through the hills of Napa Valley, carrying with it the scent of ripened grapes and the distant promise of rain. Marcus Wellington stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his $12 million estate, watching the clouds gather over the vineyard that stretched as far as the eye could see. He was 63 years old, the founder of Wellington Technologies, a man whose net worth exceeded $4 billion, a man who had built empires from nothing, who had shaken hands with presidents and dined with kings. Yet in this moment, he felt more powerless than he had ever felt in his entire life. Behind him, in the master bedroom that overlooked the valley, his wife of 41 years lay sleeping. Catherine Wellington had been the love of his life since the day he first saw her at a small coffee shop in San Francisco, back when he was just a young man with a dream and $10 in his pocket. She had believed in him when no one else did. She had held his hand through every failure, celebrated every success, and built a life with him that most people only dream about. Now, at 61 years old, she was dying, and all his billions could not save her. The diagnosis had come 8 months ago, a rare autoimmune condition that attacked her nervous system, something the doctors at Stanford Medical Center had only seen a handful of times in their careers. The best specialists in the country had examined her. The most advanced treatments available had been tried. Marcus had flown in experts from Switzerland, from Germany, from Japan. He had funded experimental research, built a wing at the hospital in her name, offered to pay whatever it took to find a cure. But medicine, for all its advances, had reached its limit. Catherine could no longer walk without assistance. Her hands trembled so badly that she could not hold a cup of tea. Some days, she could not remember the names of their grandchildren. The woman who had once danced with him under the stars, who had climbed mountains and sailed oceans by his side, was fading away, and there was nothing, absolutely nothing, that his money could do to stop it. Marcus pressed his forehead against the cold glass of the window. He had never been a religious man, but in these past months he had found himself praying to any god who might be listening, praying for a miracle, praying for one more chance. The sound of footsteps on the marble floor pulled him from his thoughts. He turned to see his daughter, Elena, walking toward him. She was 38 years old, a successful attorney in San Francisco, and she had the same gentle eyes as her mother. But today, those eyes were filled with worry. "Dad," she said softly, "the nurses say Mom had a difficult night. She kept asking for you." Marcus nodded slowly. "I know. I was with her until 3 in the morning. She finally fell asleep around 4. Eleanor stood beside her father and looked out at the gathering storm. The doctors called again. They want to discuss moving her to a specialized care facility. They say it might be time to consider comfort measures. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Comfort measures. That was the medical term for giving up. That was the term for accepting that there was nothing more to be done except make her comfortable until the end. "No," Marcus said, his voice harder than he intended. "I am not giving up on your mother. I will never give up on her. Dad, I do not want to give up either. But we have tried everything, every treatment, every specialist, every experimental therapy. What else is there?" Marcus did not answer. He did not have an answer. For the first time in his life, the man who had solved every problem, who had overcome every obstacle, who had turned every setback into a stepping stone, had no idea what to do next. That evening, as the rain began to fall over the valley, Marcus sat in his study, surrounded by medical journals and research papers. His eyes burned from lack of sleep, but he could not rest, not while there was still a chance, however small, that he might find something the doctors had missed. His phone rang. It was his old friend Daniel Chen, a venture capitalist who had known Marcus for over 30 years. "Marcus, I heard about Catherine. I am so sorry. How is she doing?" "Not well, Daniel. The doctors have run out of options." There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then Daniel spoke again, his voice hesitant. "Listen, I know this is going to sound strange, but I heard about something last week that I cannot stop thinking about. There is a woman, a healer, down in Los Angeles. She is not a traditional doctor. She uses alternative methods, things that mainstream medicine does not recognize. But I've heard stories, Marcus, remarkable stories." Marcus sighed. He had heard similar suggestions before. well-meaning friends who recommended acupuncturists, herbalists, faith healers, and various other practitioners of alternative medicine. He had tried some of them, more out of desperation than belief, but none had made any difference. "Daniel, I appreciate the thought, but—" "I know what you are thinking," Daniel interrupted, "but this is different. This woman, her name is Destiny Johnson. She runs some kind of clinic in South Central Los Angeles. She is part of a motorcycle club, can you believe that? The Iron Angels, they call themselves. A group of black women who ride together and help their community. Destiny learned something from her grandmother. Some old techniques passed down through generations. I know it sounds crazy, but a friend of mine, his son had a condition that doctors said was untreatable. After working with Destiny for 3 months, the boy made a complete recovery." Marcus rubbed his tired eyes. Motorcycle clubs, alternative healing. It sounded like something from another world, a world that had nothing to do with the sterile hospital rooms and expensive specialists he had become so familiar with. "I will think about it, Daniel." After he hung up the phone, Marcus sat in silence for a long time. The rain hammered against the windows, and somewhere in the house, a clock chimed midnight. He thought about Catherine, lying in their bed, her body growing weaker by the day. He thought about all the money he had spent, all the experts he had consulted, all the treatments that had failed. And then he thought about a woman named Destiny, a healer on a motorcycle, working out of a clinic in South Central Los Angeles. It was absurd. It was desperate. It was probably a complete waste of time. But what if it was not? What if, after all the billions of dollars, and all the prestigious doctors and all the cutting-edge treatments, the answer was waiting in a place he never would have thought to look? Marcus picked up his phone and sent a text to his assistant. "Find out everything you can about a woman named Destiny Johnson in Los Angeles. She runs a clinic and is part of a motorcycle club called the Iron Angels. I need the information by tomorrow morning." Then he walked back to the bedroom, sat beside his sleeping wife, and held her hand until the sun came up. The next morning, Marcus received a detailed report on Destiny Johnson. She was 32 years old, born and raised in Compton, California. Her grandmother had been a renowned traditional healer in their community, and Destiny had learned the practice from her before the old woman passed away 10 years ago. She had no formal medical training, but she had built a reputation in her neighborhood for helping people with conditions that conventional medicine had failed to treat. She was also the founder and leader of the Iron Angels Motorcycle Club, an all-women group that organized charity rides, mentored at-risk youth, and provided protection for vulnerable members of their community. The report included photographs. A tall, striking woman with natural hair and warm brown eyes, sitting astride a gleaming black Harley-Davidson. In another photo, she was surrounded by children at what appeared to be a community center, teaching them how to plant vegetables in a garden. Marcus stared at the photographs for a long time. This woman was nothing like anyone he had ever sought help from before. She came from a completely different world, a world of modest means and community solidarity, a world where people helped each other, not because they could afford to, but because it was the right thing to do. He picked up his phone and dialed the number listed in the report. It rang 4 times before a woman answered. "Iron Angels Community Clinic. This is Destiny speaking. How can I help you?" Her voice was calm and confident, with a hint of warmth that immediately put Marcus at ease. "Ms. Johnson, my name is Marcus Wellington. I was given your name by a friend who said you might be able to help my wife. She is very ill, and the doctors have run out of options." There was a brief pause. "Wellington, as in Wellington Technologies?" "Yes." Another pause, longer this time. "Mr. Wellington, I am not sure what your friend told you about me, but I am not a miracle worker. I do not cure diseases. What I do is work with the body and the spirit together, helping people find balance and healing in ways that Western medicine sometimes overlooks. I have had some success with certain conditions, but I cannot make any promises." "I understand," Marcus said, "but I am desperate, Ms. Johnson. My wife is the most important person in my life, and I will try anything to save her. Will you at least come and see her? I will pay whatever you ask." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Finally, Destiny spoke again. "Mr. Wellington, I do not do house calls for billionaires. That is not how this works. If you want my help, you bring your wife to my clinic. She stays in my community, under my care for as long as the treatment takes. She lives like my other patients live. No special treatment, no private nurses, no 5-star accommodations. Can you accept that?" Marcus hesitated. The idea of bringing Catherine to South Central Los Angeles, of placing her in the care of a woman with no medical credentials, of trusting her life to techniques that the scientific establishment did not recognize. It went against everything he believed in. But then he thought about the look in the doctor's eyes when they told him there was nothing more they could do. He thought about the word they kept using, palliative. He thought about losing the woman who had made his life worth living. "Yes," he said, "I can accept that. Good. Bring her to me next Monday. The address is in the report your people put together. And, Mr. Wellington, leave your security team at home. You come alone, just you and your wife. In my community, we trust each other. That is how healing begins." She hung up before he could respond. Marcus sat in his study, staring at his phone, wondering what he had just agreed to. A part of him thought he was making a terrible mistake. Another part of him, a part he had almost forgotten existed, felt something he had not felt in months. Hope. Check if you are already subscribed to this channel. Every story we share is a reminder that miracles still exist, that help can come from the most unexpected places, and that love, true love, never stops fighting. If you want to be part of this journey, if you believe in the power of human connection, subscribe now and join our family. Chapter 2. The following Monday arrived grey and overcast, with a cold wind blowing in from the Pacific. Marcus helped Catherine into the back of their Mercedes sedan, making sure she was comfortable before taking his place in the driver's seat. True to his word, he had left his security team behind, along with the private nurses and personal assistants who usually accompanied them everywhere. Catherine looked out the window as they drove south on the 101, watching the familiar landscape of Northern California give way to the sprawling suburbs of the Central Valley. She was having a good day, one of the rare days when her mind was clear and her pain was manageable. She had listened carefully as Marcus explained where they were going and why, and though she had expressed some skepticism, she had agreed to try. "Tell me more about this woman," Catherine said, her voice soft but steady. Marcus kept his eyes on the road. "Her name is Destiny Johnson. She is 32 years old, grew up in Compton. She learned traditional healing from her grandmother. She also runs a motorcycle club, all women, called the Iron Angels." Catherine smiled, the first genuine smile Marcus had seen on her face in weeks. "A motorcycle healer. That is certainly different from the specialists at Stanford." "Yes, it is." "And you trust her?" Marcus considered the question carefully. "I do not know if trust is the right word, but I believe she might be able to help where others have failed. And at this point, Catherine, I am willing to try anything." Catherine reached over and took his hand. Her grip was weak, but the gesture was full of the love they had shared for 4 decades. "I know you are, my darling, and I love you for it." They drove in comfortable silence for a while, through the grapevine and into the vast sprawl of Los Angeles. As they exited the freeway and began navigating the streets of South Central, Marcus noticed that Catherine was watching the neighborhood with curiosity rather than fear. They passed modest homes with chain-link fences, corner stores with hand-painted signs, churches with crosses reaching toward the sky, and parks where children played basketball despite the overcast weather. It was a world far removed from the manicured estates of Napa Valley, but there was life here, community, a vibrancy that Marcus had never taken the time to notice before. The Iron Angels Community Clinic was located in a converted warehouse on a street lined with auto repair shops and small businesses. A hand-painted mural covered one wall, depicting black women on motorcycles riding through a field of sunflowers. The words, "Healing Through Community," were written in elegant script across the top. Marcus parked the car and helped Catherine into her wheelchair. As they approached the entrance, the door opened, and Destiny Johnson stepped out to greet them. She was even more striking in person than she had been in the photographs. She wore jeans, boots, and a leather jacket with the Iron Angels insignia on the back, a winged figure holding a torch. Her hair was styled in long locks that fell past her shoulders, and her eyes held a depth of wisdom that seemed to belong to someone much older. "Mr. and Mrs. Wellington," she said, extending her hand. "Welcome to the clinic." Marcus shook her hand, noting the strength in her grip. "Thank you for agreeing to see us." Destiny turned her attention to Catherine, kneeling beside the wheelchair so they were at eye level. She took Catherine's trembling hands in her own and held them gently. "Mrs. Wellington, I am Destiny. I am not going to make you any promises today, but I am going to ask you to do something that might be harder than any treatment you have been through so far. I am going to ask you to trust me. Can you do that?" Catherine looked into Destiny's eyes for a long moment. Something passed between them, an understanding that Marcus could sense but not fully comprehend. "Yes," Catherine said. I can do that. Destiny smiled, and in that smile Marcus saw warmth. Marcus saw compassion and an unshakable confidence. Good, then let us begin. The clinic's interior was clean and simple, nothing like the sterile, high-tech medical facilities Marcus was accustomed to. There were plants everywhere, hanging from the ceiling, lining the windows, growing in raised beds that divided the space into different areas. The air smelled of herbs and something faintly floral, maybe lavender. Several other patients were present, attended by women in Iron Angels jackets who moved with quiet efficiency. Marcus noticed that everyone, regardless of their apparent condition, was treated with the same gentle respect. Destiny led them to a private room at the back of the building. It was small but comfortable, with a bed, a chair and a window that looked out onto a small garden. The walls were decorated with photographs of the Iron Angels at various community events, charity rides, food drives, graduation ceremonies, where they served as mentors. This will be Catherine's room while she is here, Destiny explained. I will be working with her every day, but she will also be participating in our community activities as much as she is able. Healing is not just about the body, Mr. Wellington. It is about connection, purpose, belonging. Marcus looked around the modest room. It was a far cry from the million-dollar medical suites Catherine had occupied at Stanford, but there was something here that those places lacked, a sense of humanity, of genuine care. What exactly will you be doing? He asked. Destiny walked to the window and looked out at the garden. My grandmother taught me that illness often begins not in the body, but in the spirit. When we are disconnected from our community, from our purpose, from the people who love us, our bodies begin to suffer. The techniques I use address both the physical symptoms and the spiritual imbalance. She turned back to face them. I use herbal treatments passed down through generations. Massage and movement therapy that helps the body remember its natural rhythms, sound healing, meditation, and other practices that Western medicine does not take seriously, but that have been used by my ancestors for centuries. And you believe this can help my wife? Destiny met his gaze steadily. I believe that your wife has more strength than anyone has given her credit for. I believe that somewhere inside her there is a will to live that has been buried under all the treatments and diagnoses and prognoses. My job is to help her find that will again. The rest is up to her. Catherine spoke up, her voice quiet but firm. Marcus, I would like to stay. I would like to try this. Marcus looked at his wife, seeing the determination in her eyes. It was the same determination he had fallen in love with over 4 decades ago, the fire that had driven her to build a life with him against all odds. That fire had dimmed in recent months, beaten down by illness and despair, but it was still there, and this woman, this healer on a motorcycle, seemed to have rekindled it. All right, he said, we will try. Over the following days, Marcus stayed at a modest hotel nearby, visiting Catherine at the clinic every afternoon. He watched as Destiny worked with her, using techniques he did not understand, but could not deny were having an effect. Catherine's trembling seemed to lessen. Her eyes, which had been clouded with confusion and fatigue, began to clear. She started eating again, regaining some of the weight she had lost. She even began to participate in the clinic's activities, helping to tend the garden from her wheelchair, talking with other patients, learning the names of the Iron Angels who cared for her. Marcus also began to learn about Destiny and her community. The Iron Angels had been founded 10 years ago, after Destiny's cousin was harmed in a situation that the authorities failed to address properly. Destiny had gathered a group of women from her neighborhood, mechanics, nurses, teachers, and mothers, and formed a motorcycle club dedicated to protecting and serving their community. They organized rides to raise money for local schools. They mentored young people who were at risk of falling into difficult situations. They provided security for elderly residents and protection for women in vulnerable situations. They ran the clinic, offering healing services to people who could not afford traditional medical care. Why do you do all this? Marcus asked Destiny one evening. As they sat in the clinic's small kitchen drinking tea, Destiny smiled. Because someone has to, Mr. Wellington. Because the people in this community have been forgotten by the systems that are supposed to help them. Because my grandmother taught me that we are all connected, and when one of us suffers, we all suffer. She set down her cup and looked at him with those wise, penetrating eyes. You have spent your whole life building things, Mr. Wellington. Buildings, companies, empires. You have more money than anyone could spend in 100 lifetimes, but none of that could save your wife, could it? Marcus shook his head slowly. That is because healing is not something you can buy. It is something you find. It is in the hands of the people who care for you. It is in the community that holds you up when you cannot stand on your own. It is in the love that never gives up, even when all hope seems lost. She reached across the table and placed her hand on his. Your wife is going to be all right, Mr. Wellington, not because of anything I do, but because she has something worth fighting for. She has you. She has your children and grandchildren. She has a life full of love and meaning. That is more powerful than any medicine. Marcus felt tears prick at his eyes, something that had not happened in longer than he could remember. Thank you, Destiny. Thank you for giving us this chance. Do not thank me yet, she said with a gentle smile. We still have a long way to go. Chapter 3. 3 weeks passed, and Catherine's improvement continued at a pace that astonished everyone, including Destiny herself. The tremors in her hands had almost completely stopped. She could walk short distances with only a cane for support. Her memory, which had been failing so badly, was sharper than it had been in months. The doctors at Stanford could not explain it. When Marcus sent them Catherine's latest test results, they responded with disbelief. The markers that had indicated the severity of her condition had improved dramatically. Her nervous system, which had been deteriorating at an alarming rate, appeared to be stabilizing. It is remarkable, one specialist said during a video consultation. I've never seen anything like this. Whatever you are doing, keep doing it. But Marcus knew that it was not anything he was doing. It was Destiny, with her herbs and her techniques, and her unshakable belief in the power of healing. It was the community at the clinic, the women who treated Catherine like family, the patients who shared their own stories of recovery and hope. One afternoon, Marcus arrived at the clinic to find Catherine sitting in the garden, surrounded by a group of iron angels. They were laughing at something she had said, and the sound of Catherine's laughter, a sound he had feared he might never hear again, filled Marcus with a joy so profound that he had to stop and catch his breath. Destiny walked up beside him, following his gaze. She is a remarkable woman, your wife. Yes, Marcus said. She always has been. She has been teaching the other patients about flower arranging. It is part of her therapy now, using her hands for delicate work, rebuilding the neural pathways. But the other patients love it. They say she makes them feel like they are at a fancy garden party. Marcus smiled. That is Catherine. She always finds a way to bring beauty into any situation. Destiny nodded. Mr. Wellington, I need to talk to you about something. Can we take a walk? They walked together through the neighborhood, past the auto shops and corner stores, past the church where the Iron Angels held their weekly community meetings. Destiny nodded to the people they passed. Elderly men sitting on porches, mothers pushing strollers, teenagers heading to the basketball courts, and they all nodded back with respect and affection. Your wife is healing, Destiny said. That much is clear, but I want you to understand something. This is not a permanent fix. The work we have done together has helped her body remember how to fight, but she will need ongoing care, ongoing support, ongoing connection to stay healthy. What are you saying? Destiny stopped walking and turned to face him. I am saying that when she leaves here, she cannot go back to the life she was living before. The isolation, the sterile environment, the treatment as a patient rather than a person, that will undo everything we have accomplished. What do you suggest? I suggest that you think about what really matters. All your money, all your success, all your achievements, what good are they if the person you love is not there to share them with you? Marcus was silent for a long moment, considering her words. He had spent his entire adult life building his empire, accumulating wealth and power, believing that these things would provide security and happiness for his family. But in the end, none of it had been able to save Catherine. The only thing that had made a difference was this woman, this community, this simple clinic in a neighborhood that most people in his world would never even drive through. You are right, he said finally. I have been so focused on solving problems, on finding solutions, that I forgot to just be present, to just be there with her. Destiny smiled. It is not too late to change that. Your wife still has many good years ahead of her, God willing. The question is, what are you going to do with them? Before Marcus could answer, the sound of motorcycle engines filled the air. A group of Iron Angels came riding down the street, returning from what looked like a charity event. The riders pulled up in front of the clinic and removed their helmets, revealing a diverse group of women ranging in age from their early 20s to their 60s. Among them was a young woman named Maya, who served as Destiny's second-in-command. She walked over to them with a broad smile. Destiny, you need to come inside. Mrs. Wellington has something to show you. They followed Maya into the clinic, where Catherine was waiting in the main room. She was standing, with only the slightest support from a walker. Her face was radiant with pride and joy. "Marcus," she said, her voice strong and clear, "watch this." And then, slowly, carefully, Catherine took 3 steps forward without any support at all. She wobbled slightly, and Marcus rushed forward to catch her, but she steadied herself and completed the steps on her own. The room erupted in applause. The other patients cheered. The Iron Angels whistled and shouted encouragement. Catherine looked at Marcus with tears streaming down her face, and he took her in his arms and held her close. "I thought I would never walk again," she whispered. "I thought I would never feel like myself again." "You are stronger than you know," Marcus said. "You always have been." Destiny watched them embrace, a soft smile on her face. She caught Marcus's eye over Catherine's shoulder and nodded slightly as if to say, "This is what healing looks like." That evening there was a celebration at the clinic. Someone brought a portable speaker and played music. The Iron Angels cooked a feast of southern dishes: fried chicken, collard greens, macaroni and cheese, cornbread, and everyone ate together in the garden as the sun set over Los Angeles. Marcus sat next to Catherine, holding her hand, watching this community that had welcomed them with open arms despite the vast differences in their backgrounds. He saw elderly patients dancing with young volunteers. He saw Iron Angels telling stories about their rides and adventures. He saw children running through the garden, chasing fireflies that had appeared in the evening air. This is what matters, he thought. Not the mansions or the private jets or the billions in the bank. This, human connection, community, love, this is what gives life meaning. As the evening wore on and the stars appeared above the city, Destiny stood up and called for everyone's attention. "I want to take a moment to acknowledge someone special," she said. "Mrs. Catherine Wellington came to us 4 weeks ago. She had been told by the best doctors in the world that there was nothing more they could do for her. She had been told to prepare for the worst." Destiny paused, her eyes finding Catherine in the crowd. But Mrs. Wellington did not give up. She trusted us. She opened her heart to this community. She worked harder than any patient I have ever seen, and tonight she walked on her own 2 feet. Let us give her a round of applause. The applause was thunderous, accompanied by cheers and whistles. Catherine blushed and waved modestly, but the joy on her face was unmistakable. Then something unexpected happened. One of the older patients, a woman named Gloria who had been at the clinic for 6 months, stood up and spoke. "I want to say something," Gloria said, her voice thick with emotion. "When I first came here, I had lost everything. My health, my hope, my will to live. But Destiny and the Iron Angels showed me that there is always a reason to keep fighting. They showed me that I am not alone." Gloria turned to look directly at the audience, at the camera that one of the younger members was using to document the celebration. "If you are watching this, wherever you are, and you feel like giving up, please do not. Reach out. Find your community. Let people help you. You never know what miracle might be waiting just around the corner." The room fell silent for a moment, moved by Gloria's words. Then, spontaneously, someone began to clap, and soon everyone was on their feet, applauding not just Catherine, but everyone who had found hope within these walls. Marcus felt tears streaming down his face. He was not embarrassed. Looking around, he saw that many others were crying too, tears of joy, of gratitude, of hope. If this story is touching your heart right now, please leave a comment saying, "I believe in miracles." Share your own story of hope and healing. We read every single comment, and your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Chapter 4. As Catherine's strength continued to return, Marcus found himself spending more and more time at the clinic, not just visiting his wife, but becoming involved in the community himself. He helped in the garden, learning the names of herbs he had never heard of before. He sat with other patients, listening to their stories. He attended the Iron Angels community meetings and learned about the challenges facing the neighborhood. What he discovered shocked him. Despite being one of the richest men in America, he had been completely oblivious to the struggles of people living just a few hours from his estate. Families who could not afford proper medical care, children who attended underfunded schools, young people who saw no path to a better future and fell into dangerous situations as a result. "Why does no one talk about this?" Marcus asked Destiny one afternoon. "Why is this not on the news in the newspapers?" Destiny laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Mr. Wellington, people have been talking about this for generations. The question is, who is listening? The people with the power to make changes live in a different world. They do not see us. We are invisible to them." Marcus was silent. He knew she was right. He had spent his entire career focused on technology, on innovation, on building things that would make money and change the world. But he had never thought about the people who were left behind, the communities that did not benefit from the digital revolution, the families who struggled just to survive. "What can I do?" he asked. "I have resources. I have connections. What can I do to help?" Destiny studied him for a long moment, as if trying to determine whether he was sincere. Finally, she spoke. "You can start by listening. Really listening. Not just waiting for your turn to talk. You can use your platform to amplify the voices of people who are never heard. And you can invest in communities like this one, not as charity but as partnership. We do not need handouts, Mr. Wellington. We need opportunities." Over the following weeks, Marcus did exactly that. He hired local contractors to renovate the clinic, creating a state-of-the-art facility while preserving its warm, community-centered atmosphere. He established a scholarship fund for students in the neighborhood, providing full tuition and living expenses for anyone who wanted to pursue higher education. He partnered with local businesses to create job training programs and apprenticeships, but most importantly, he listened. He sat in on community meetings, learning about the issues that mattered most to residents. He heard from parents who worried about their children's safety, from elderly people who could not afford their medications, from young entrepreneurs who had brilliant ideas but no access to capital. And for the first time in his long and successful career, Marcus began to understand that true wealth was not measured in dollars and cents. It was measured in the lives you touched, the communities you strengthened, the hope you helped to restore. Meanwhile, Catherine's recovery continued to astonish everyone. She was now walking regularly, attending physical therapy sessions with other patients, and even participating in some of the lighter activities of the Iron Angels. She had developed a close friendship with Destiny, and the two women could often be found in the garden, talking for hours about life, love, loss, and healing. One evening, as the sun set over the clinic, Catherine found Marcus sitting alone in the garden. She walked over to him, walked on her own 2 feet, and sat down beside him. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. Marcus took her hand. "I'm thinking about how blind I have been. I thought that success meant building companies and making money. I thought that if I accumulated enough wealth, I could protect you from anything. But I was wrong." Catherine squeezed his hand. "You are not wrong to want to provide for your family, Marcus. That comes from love." "Yes, but I let it consume me. But I was so focused on building an empire that I forgot to build a life. I forgot what really matters." Catherine leaned her head against his shoulder. "You know what I love about this place? It is not the treatments or the techniques. It is the way people care for each other. Everyone here is fighting their own battle, but they support each other. They celebrate each other's victories. They hold each other up when times are hard. That is what Destiny has created here. Not just a clinic, but a family." Marcus nodded slowly. "I want to be part of that family, Catherine. I want to use whatever time I have left to make a real difference, not just on a spreadsheet but in people's lives." Catherine smiled and kissed his cheek. "I know you will, my darling. I have always known you had that goodness in you. It just needed the right spark to bring it out." At that moment, the roar of motorcycle engines filled the air. The Iron Angels were returning from one of their community rides, and they pulled into the clinic's parking lot in a formation that never failed to inspire awe. Destiny dismounted from her Harley and removed her helmet. Her face was glowing with joy and adrenaline, and she walked over to where Marcus and Catherine sat. "How was the ride?" Catherine asked. "Beautiful," Destiny said. "We went up to Malibu and back. The weather was perfect, and we raised over $20,000 for the children's program." $20,000, Marcus repeated. "From a motorcycle ride." Destiny grinned. "The Iron Angels have a lot of supporters, Mr. Wellington. People believe in what we do." Marcus looked at the women who were parking their motorcycles, removing their gear, and greeting the patients who had gathered to welcome them back. They were teachers and nurses, mothers and grandmothers, young women and old. They came from different backgrounds, had different stories, but they were united by a common purpose. "I would like to support what you do," Marcus said, "not just with money, but with my time and energy. I want to learn. I want to help." Destiny looked at him with those wise, penetrating eyes. "Mr. Wellington, you have already helped more than you know. But if you are serious about this, I have a suggestion." "What is that?" "Join us on a ride." Marcus blinked in surprise. "I have not been on a motorcycle since I was in my 20s. "Then it is time to get back on. Riding is not just about the machine. It is about freedom. It is about connection. It is about feeling the wind in your face and knowing that you are part of something bigger than yourself. Marcus looked at Catherine, who was smiling encouragingly. "Go on," she said. "I will be here when you get back." And so, the next Saturday morning, Marcus Wellington, billionaire technology pioneer, found himself straddling a Harley-Davidson for the first time in over 40 years. The Iron Angels gathered around him, offering encouragement and instructions, and Destiny personally checked his helmet and gear. "Are you ready?" she asked. Marcus took a deep breath. "Ready." The ride took them through the streets of South Central, past the neighborhoods where the Iron Angels did their work. They stopped at a community center, where the club was sponsoring a youth program. They visited a home for elderly residents, where the Angels provided regular support. They ended at a beachside park where the sun was setting over the Pacific, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. As Marcus stood on the beach, surrounded by the women who had welcomed him into their community, he felt something he had not felt in years. Peace. True, deep, unshakable peace. He thought about all the years he had spent chasing success, accumulating wealth, building his empire. He thought about the loneliness that had haunted him, even at the height of his achievements. And he understood, finally, that everything he had been searching for had been right in front of him all along. It was not in the boardrooms or the bank accounts. It was in the connections between people. It was in the love that flows through communities. It was in the simple act of showing up for one another. Marcus turned to Destiny. Thank you for everything." Destiny smiled. "You are welcome, Mr. Wellington. Now let us get you back to your wife. She is probably wondering where you are." Chapter 5. 2 months had passed since Marcus and Catherine first arrived at the Iron Angels clinic, and the transformation was nothing short of miraculous. Catherine, who had been told by the world's best doctors that she would spend her remaining days in a wheelchair, was now walking unassisted. Her memory had largely returned. Her energy, her spirit, her zest for life, all had been restored. The medical community was baffled. When Catherine returned to Stanford for a follow-up examination, the specialists could not explain what had happened. All they could do was document her recovery and admit that something beyond their understanding had taken place. "This is unprecedented," the chief neurologist said, reviewing her test results. "The damage to your nervous system should have been irreversible, yet here you are, walking, talking, thriving. I have no scientific explanation for this." "Maybe some things cannot be explained by science alone," Catherine replied with a smile. Marcus and Catherine had made a decision. They would not simply return to their old life in Napa Valley. They would divide their time between their estate and the community that had saved Catherine's life. They established the Wellington Angels Foundation, a partnership between their family wealth and the Iron Angels community expertise. The foundation's first major project was the expansion of the clinic into a full-scale community health center. Marcus funded the construction, but the Iron Angels directed the design and operations. The new center would provide free medical care, mental health services, job training and youth programs to the residents of South Central. On the day of the groundbreaking ceremony, hundreds of people gathered to celebrate. Local politicians, community leaders, and residents filled the lot where the new center would be built. News cameras captured the moment when Marcus, Catherine, and Destiny broke ground together, shovels in hand, smiles on their faces. "This is not charity," Marcus said in his speech. "This is partnership. This is what happens when people from different worlds come together and recognize that we need each other. The Iron Angels saved my wife's life. Now, it is our privilege to give something back." Destiny spoke next, her voice carrying across the crowd. "For too long our community has been overlooked, underserved, and underestimated. But we have always had strength. We have always had hope. What we needed was for someone to believe in us, to invest in us, to see our potential. The Wellington family has done that. And we are grateful. But let me be clear, this center belongs to you, the community. It is yours to use, to shape, to make your own." The applause was thunderous. People embraced, cried, and celebrated. For many in the neighborhood, this was the first time anyone with power and resources had actually listened to their needs and responded in a meaningful way. After the ceremony, Marcus found himself standing alone watching the crowd disperse. He felt a hand on his shoulder and turned to find Destiny standing beside him. "You did good today, Mr. Wellington. Please," he said, "call me Marcus." Destiny smiled. "All right, Marcus. You did good. I could not have done any of this without you. Destiny, you saved Catherine. You opened my eyes. You showed me what it means to truly make a difference. I did not do anything special. I just did what my grandmother taught me. I listened. I cared. I trusted that healing would find a way. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he asked a question that had been on his mind for weeks. Destiny, what you do, the herbal treatments, the movement therapy, the spiritual practices, how does it work? I have seen the results with my own eyes, but I still do not understand. Destiny considered the question carefully before answering. There are many things in this world that Western science has not yet figured out how to measure. The connection between mind and body, the power of community and belonging, the energy that flows between people when they truly care for one another. My grandmother called it the life force. Other cultures have other names for it. Whatever you call it, it is real and it can be harnessed for healing. She paused, looking out at the community she had spent her life serving. But I want to be honest with you, Marcus. What happened with Catherine was exceptional. I have worked with many patients over the years, and not all of them have recovered as completely as she did. I do not have all the answers. I am still learning, still trying to understand. But you helped her when no one else could. I helped create the conditions for healing. The actual healing came from within her, from her will to live, from her connection to you and your family, from the love that surrounded her every day at the clinic. That is the real medicine. Marcus, love. It is the most powerful force in the universe. Marcus nodded slowly, absorbing her words. He had spent his entire career believing in the power of technology, of data, of rational analysis. But what Destiny described was something different, something that could not be quantified or programmed. And yet, he had seen it work with his own eyes. I want to learn more, he said. I want to understand what you do and help share it with others. Then stay, Destiny said. Continue to be part of this community. Healing is not a destination. It is a journey, and it works best when we take that journey together. Over the following months, Marcus immersed himself in the work of the foundation and the clinic. He learned about traditional healing practices from Destiny and her colleagues. He studied the research on the connection between social support and health outcomes. He partnered with universities to fund studies on alternative healing methods, hoping to build a bridge between traditional and modern medicine. Catherine, meanwhile, had become a beloved figure in the community. She taught regular classes on flower arranging and gardening, sharing the skills she had developed over a lifetime. She mentored young women who were going through difficult times, offering wisdom and encouragement. She even learned to ride on the back of a motorcycle, joining the Iron Angels on several of their community rides. The transformation in both of them was remarkable. Marcus, who had once been known as a ruthless businessman, was now known for his generosity and humility. Catherine, who had been given months to live, was thriving, her health better than it had been in years. But the most remarkable transformation was yet to come. One evening, as Marcus was reviewing plans for the new community center, Destiny came to him with an unusual request. Marcus, there is a situation I need your help with. A young woman barely 20 years old has been brought to the clinic. She has a condition similar to what Catherine had, but more advanced. The doctors have given up on her. Her family has no resources. Without intervention, she will not survive. What can I do? I need you to come with me to speak to her family. They are frightened and skeptical. They do not trust outsiders, but if they see that a man like you has put his faith in our methods, they might be willing to give us a chance. Marcus did not hesitate. Let us go. They drove to a modest apartment in Watts, where the young woman Jasmine lived with her mother and grandmother. The apartment was small and crowded, but immaculately clean. Pictures of Jasmine from healthier times covered the walls. Graduation photos, family gatherings, a beautiful young woman with a bright smile and ambitious dreams. Now, Jasmine lay in a bed in the corner of the living room, her body thin and frail, her eyes vacant. Her mother Denise sat beside her, holding her hand. Her grandmother, a woman in her 80s named Rosa, watched from across the room with suspicious eyes. Miss Denise, Miss Rosa, Destiny said gently. This is Marcus Wellington. He came to our clinic 2 months ago with his wife, who had the same condition as Jasmine. She has made a full recovery. Denise looked at Marcus with a mixture of hope and disbelief. Is that true? Marcus stepped forward, meeting her eyes with sincerity. It is true. My wife was dying. The best doctors in the world could not help her. Destiny and the Iron Angels saved her life. I know it sounds unbelievable. I did not believe it myself at first, but I am living proof that miracles can happen. Rosa spoke up, her voice sharp. Why should we trust you? Rich people like you do not care about people like us. You only care about yourselves. Marcus did not flinch. You are right to be skeptical. Miss Rosa, you have every reason not to trust me, but I am not here to convince you of anything. I am here to tell you what I have seen and to offer whatever help I can. The choice is yours." There was a long silence. Then Jasmine, who had been lying motionless, opened her eyes and spoke for the first time. "Mom," she whispered, "let them help me, please." Denise looked at her daughter, then at Destiny, then at Marcus. Tears streamed down her face. "Okay," she said. "Okay, we will try." Chapter 6. Jasmine moved into the Iron Angels clinic the following week. Her condition was more severe than Catherine's had been, and Destiny warned the family that recovery would be a long and uncertain process. But the community rallied around her, just as they had rallied around Catherine. Marcus visited every day, sitting with Jasmine, reading to her, telling her stories about his life and the lessons he had learned. Catherine came too, sharing her own experience of recovery and reminding Jasmine that hope was never lost. "When I was at my lowest," Catherine told her, "I thought my life was over. I thought I would never walk again, never hold my grandchildren, never dance with my husband, but I was wrong. There is always a chance." Jasmine, always. The Iron Angels took turns caring for Jasmine around the clock. They brought her grandmother's home-cooked meals. They played her favorite music. They surrounded her with love and positive energy, creating the conditions for healing just as they had for Catherine. It was not easy. There were setbacks, moments when Jasmine's condition worsened and everyone feared the worst. But through it all, Destiny remained calm and confident, adjusting her treatments, refining her approach, never giving up. Slowly, gradually, Jasmine began to improve. The vacant look in her eyes gave way to awareness. She began to speak in complete sentences, then to sit up on her own, then to take her first tentative steps. 4 months after she arrived at the clinic, Jasmine walked out under her own power, supported on either side by her mother and grandmother. She was weak, still recovering, but she was alive and getting stronger every day. The celebration that followed was even bigger than the one for Catherine. The entire community turned out: residents, Iron Angels, volunteers and patients. Marcus and Catherine were there, along with their children and grandchildren who had flown in from across the country to witness the miracle. Destiny stood before the crowd, her voice thick with emotion. "What you see here today is not the work of one person. It is the work of a community. It is the work of people who refused to give up, who showed up every day, who gave their love and energy to someone in need. That is the power of the Iron Angels. That is the power of all of you." She turned to face Marcus and Catherine. "And I want to thank 2 people who have become part of our family. Marcus and Catherine Wellington came to us as strangers. They could have dismissed us, looked down on us, gone back to their world of wealth and privilege. Instead, they opened their hearts. They invested in our community. They believed in us. And because of them, Jasmine is alive today." The applause was deafening. Marcus felt Catherine's hand squeeze his, and he looked at her with tears in his eyes. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For getting sick." Catherine laughed through her tears. "That is the strangest thing anyone has ever thanked me for. But if you had not gotten sick, we never would have come here. We never would have met Destiny. We never would have discovered what really matters." Catherine leaned against him, her head on his shoulder. "Everything happens for a reason. My darling, even the hardest things, especially the hardest things." As the celebration continued, Marcus found himself standing alone for a moment, looking out at the community he had come to love. He thought about his life, the choices he had made, the things he had valued. He thought about all the years he had spent accumulating wealth, believing that money could solve any problem. He had been wrong. Money could not buy health, it could not buy love, it could not buy the sense of belonging and purpose that came from being part of a community. But money could be used for good. It could be invested in people, in communities, in the things that truly mattered. And that is what Marcus resolved to do with whatever time he had left. He would not simply write checks and walk away. He would stay engaged, stay connected, stay present. He would learn from Destiny and the Iron Angels. He would share their story with the world. He would use his platform and his resources to amplify their message of hope and healing. And most importantly, he would never forget the lesson that this remarkable young woman on a motorcycle had taught him, that healing begins not in hospitals or laboratories, but in the connections between people, in the love that flows through communities, in the simple act of showing up for one another. As the sun set over the clinic, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple, Marcus walked back to where Catherine and Destiny were standing. The 3 of them looked out at the community gathered before them, the patients and volunteers, the iron angels in their leather jackets, the families who had found hope within these walls. "What are you thinking about?" Destiny asked. Marcus smiled. "I am thinking about how grateful I am. Grateful for you, for this community, for the chance to be part of something meaningful." Destiny nodded. "Gratitude is the beginning of healing, Marcus. It opens the heart. It makes space for love." "My grandmother used to say something like that," Catherine said. "She said that a grateful heart is a magnet for miracles." "Your grandmother was a wise woman," Destiny said. "She would have loved you, Destiny. She would have understood what you do here." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching as the first stars appeared in the evening sky. Behind them, the community continued to celebrate, their laughter and music filling the air with joy. And in that moment, surrounded by the people he loved and the community that had saved his wife, Marcus Wellington understood something he had been seeking his entire life. This was success. This was wealth. This was the true measure of a life well lived. Not the buildings he had built or the companies he had founded or the billions in his bank account, but this: connection, community, love. This was everything. If you watched this far, it is because this story touched your heart. If you believe in the power of love and community, if you believe that miracles still happen, leave a comment saying, "I watched this far." We want to know you. We want to celebrate you. You are part of this family now. And if this story moved you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who is struggling, someone who has lost hope. Remind them that help can come from the most unexpected places. Remind them that they are not alone. Before you go, please subscribe to this channel and ring the notification bell so you never miss another story. Every week, we bring you stories of courage, compassion, and the unbreakable power of the human spirit. Hit that like button if you believe that every life has value, that every community has strength, and that love is the most powerful force in the universe. Neither the billionaire nor doctors could save his wife until a black biker girl did the unthinkable. She showed them that healing is not something you buy. It is something you find. It is in the hands of the people who care for you. It is in the community that holds you up when you cannot stand on your own. It is in the love that never gives up. May you find your own community. May you find your own healing. And may you always remember that as long as there is love, there is hope. This has been a story of miracles, of redemption, of the power of human connection. Thank you for being here with us. Until next time.